Good morning, team. We're now going to go through how to use the ERPDML. So as you open the ERPDML, you'll find that you have this screen that comes up, and you can select the mode. If you click on mode, you have dive planning, surface interval, or maximum depth. All right, let's start off with dive planning. Hit enter, and you'll find the first thing that it's being asked, is this a multi-level dive, yes or no? So when we use the table, we were restricted to a depth for a certain time. If you went to 30 meters, you were allowed to stay there for 20 minutes. But if you went to 30 meters and then surfaced to 20 meters and stayed there for a further time, and then up to 10 meters and stayed there for a further time, you should be allowed to stay longer. However, the dive table is unable to do multi-levels, whereas the ERPDML is able to do different levels for one dive. But let's start off at the beginning, and let's say this is just a normal dive. So this is not a multi-level dive. So we say no to that. Is it your first dive? Yes, it's the first dive of the day. And let's say we want to go to 20 meters. It tells us that our no decompression limit is 45 minutes. That is the maximum allowable time I'm allowed to stay there at that depth. How long do I actually want to stay? So enter actual bottom time. ABT stands for actual bottom time. Let's say I want to stay there for 28 minutes. And then it automatically tells us that we're in pressure group L after this dive. Hit enter again, and it asks us to enter the surface interval. Let's say we want to stay at the surface for 1 hour and 5 minutes. We got 1, 0, 5. And that then tells us that we're doing a surface interval of 1 hour and 5 minutes. After that surface interval, so the pressure group after surface interval is C. Now we're in pressure group C. And let's say our second dive is going to be to 15 meters. And it tells us that our adjusted no decompression limit is 55 minutes. So that is the amount of time I'm allowed to stay at 15 meters when I have C amount of nitrogen in my body. Enter the actual bottom time. Let's say, for example, we want to stay there for 45 minutes. And it shows up that a safety stop is required. So after that dive, it automatically tells us that a safety stop is required. And it tells us that we're in pressure group U after this dive. And that is how I would continue. So another surface interval, say for 50 minutes, makes us in pressure group J. Enter depth. Let's say I want to go to 12 meters on this dive. Tells me I'm allowed to stay there for 102 minutes. Our actual bottom time, let's say, is 60 minutes. Nice long dive. And we're in pressure group V. No safety stop required, as we did come within 3 pressure groups of that no decompression limit, and the ERPDML didn't start beeping at us either. So that is how we do normal dives. Okay, so let's have a look at some other stuff. Okay, select mode. Let's do dive planning. And let's say we do a multi-level dive. Is this our first dive? Yes. So enter level 1. So let's say we do a deep dive to 30 meters. It tells me I'm allowed to stay there for 20 minutes. My NDL, my no decompression limit, is 20 minutes. Enter the actual bottom time. So let's say I stay there for 10 minutes. And that puts me in pressure group E after that first level. Now it's asking me for my second level. Let's say we want to go to 20 meters. So we're ascending from 30 to 20. My multi-level is now I'm allowed to stay there for another 24 minutes. Great. Okay. So let's say, for example, I'm going to stay there for another 10 minutes. Actual bottom time. That's going to put me in pressure group K after that second level. Enter level 3. Let's say I want to now ascend to 12 meters. I'm allowed to stay there for 83 minutes, but let's say I'm only going to stay there for 20 minutes. Oops, sorry, enter, 20 minutes. And that now puts me in pressure group P. Okay, excellent. So that is how I plan a multi-level dive. So in this example, I was able to go to 30 meters for 10 minutes, then 20 meters for a further 10 minutes, and then to 12 meters for another 20 minutes, allowing me to stay for 40 minutes. Whereas if I dived on the table going to 30 meters, I would only be allowed to be there for a total of 20 minutes. What else can this little machine do for us? Dive planning. We have now looked at dive planning as such, in the fact that we can do normal dives and we can do multi-level dives. But let's have a look at surface intervals. So calculating a minimum surface interval. Is this our first dive? Let's say yes. Depth. Let's say we want to go to 20 meters. We're allowed to stay there for 45 minutes. Let's say we stay there for 35 minutes. Now, enter the second depth. Let's say we want to go to 20 meters again. We're allowed to stay there for 39 minutes. And let's say we want to stay there for 35 minutes. We must do a safety stop. And it automatically then tells me that the minimum surface intervals between these two dives is 1 hour and 39. So very, very easy and simple to work out. So that's how I would do minimum surface intervals. Then the last one is we've got dive planning, we've got surface interval. Last one is maximum depth. So we're going to find out what is the maximum depth I'm allowed to go to. Okay, is this the first dive? Yes. Dive time in minutes, say 60 minutes. We must do a safety stop. And the maximum depth is 16 meters. So if we want to dive for 60 minutes, we can only go to 16 meters on a straight line profile. Okay. And yeah, that's how I use the ERPDML. So I can also have a look at, when I look at the maximum depth, say, no, this is not my first dive, it's my second or third dive after surface interval. So I say no. And it's saying pressure group after surface interval. Yes. And say we want to be in pressure group K. So I press the 5 2 times, and that brings me into K. Enter. Dive time, let's say I want to dive for 25 minutes. Must do a safety stop. But I can go to 18 meters. That is going to be my maximum depth. Okay, so yeah, it's a good, fun little exercise to do, and this is how I use the ERPDML. I hope this video explained everything that you needed to know. Thank you very much, and best of success in your Divemaster or instructor course. Thank you.